Joe Biden's last greatest victory, as his decision to withdraw from the presidential race is already being called, will open the door to a victory for Democrats and democracy. At least that's what we think. Is this really so? Let's figure it out right now. I am Ira Uzlova. Uriel Epstein, Executive Director of the American nonprofit organization Renew Democracy Initiative, is with me. Uriel, hello. Good to see you.
Hello.
I will start uncharacteristically for myself with yellow news. Nevertheless, for some reason, it is actively dispersed by the Republican media, talking about Biden's serious, very serious illness, because they did not see him either in photos or on video, and they say he announced his decision with the help of a letter, and not with the help of a public appeal. Why are such rumors being spread now, and who are they aimed at?
Well, I think it's quite unexpected. To date, Republicans understand that first, their chances, when Biden was a candidate, their chances were very good. I would say that Trump had almost a 90% chance of defeating Joe Biden if he had remained the nominee.
We talked about this just the other day.
Well, yes, exactly. And then I said that I believed that Biden would leave and that he would leave quite quickly, because in the end he still understood this, or was in a position to understand these facts, that he had no chance against Trump. And what he should have done to defeat Trump, that is, to speak in interviews like this, to speak without a teleprompter, to speak aggressively at rallies, he was not able to do these things. And again, this is not entirely unexpected. He was still 81 years old, but he could not win. And in the end, I think the Democratic Party convinced him that he couldn't win. Now that he has left, the situation has become more difficult for Republicans. They will probably win anyway. I think that they still have better chances than the Democrats. They have a 60% chance, I would say, against Kamala. After all, Kamala begins to act as an outsider, as we call it in English, underdog. It's not exactly David versus Goliath, but the situation is not equal either. Trump has a clear advantage over Kamala. However, this advantage is not as colossal as 90% against 10%, rather it is closer to 60 to 40, and perhaps even less. At the moment, Republicans are actively looking for any excuse to fight against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, taking advantage of the fact that Joe Biden is not ready for another 4 years as president. They are trying to remind the American public that Biden, although older than Trump, is obviously suffering from health problems, and that this should serve as an argument against the Republicans. Of course, don't exaggerate, I don't think he's going to die. I don't think he's that sick. But no, it was obvious. I think that anyone who looks at him, who listens to him, who looks at him, will understand that he is. He has something. It's not just age. Something, some kind of disease, or something else still exists. And that he is not able to communicate, since a presidential candidate must communicate.
Biden's Twitter account released a text statement in which he denied the possibility of his early resignation from the presidency. They say, no, nothing that we can't do, we, the United States, if we do it together. I have dedicated my presidency to proving this, and I will continue to do so today, tomorrow, and every day as long as I have the honor of being your president. And can Biden go to something more during these 4 months, such as giving us a free hand more with more permits or more new weapons?
Well, this is my argument, and the argument of my organization Renew Democracy Initiative. Now is the opportunity to provide you with absolutely all the resources and untie your hands before the elections, so that you can do everything possible to stop this war. This is a key point, because everyone says that it is necessary to stop the war. It is necessary to stop the war. But the argument that we can stop this war by stopping giving you any weapons, that this will somehow stop the war, but this is absolutely not true. This will not stop the war. It can stop this war, but it will start God knows how many new wars. Putin will understand that nothing stops him, and that he can, first, try to take all of Ukraine, and then, which is most dangerous, and if he decides to go against Lithuania. Against Lithuania.
Or Latvia, or Estonia.
Think so. There are only 2 million people in Lithuania, and I think you have 45 million in Ukraine. So Putin will think that if the free world is not ready to defend Ukraine, if we are not ready to defend the key country of the free world, then is he ready to defend Lithuania? And if he attacks Lithuania, then this is a completely different story. Lithuania is a member of NATO. This means that either we should just destroy all of NATO, that it's all nonsense if we are not ready to defend Lithuania, or it means that there will be a direct clash between the United States and Russia. And that's exactly what I hope everyone should understand. Biden should understand this, and Trump should understand it as well. I don't know if he understands it or not, but of course he should. So, with the time that Biden has left as President of the United States, it would be very beneficial for him to help you. That's how he can. Because it would be beneficial to him not only from the point of view of geopolitics, so that you could stop this war, finally stop this war forever, and not just for a few years. And that would be politically advantageous because it would show that the Democrats are strong, that he is strong, that his administration is strong, and that the future Democratic nominee for the presidency, Kamala Harris, is strong and ready to defend the free world.
Uriel, at the same time, our experts, in particular military expert Alexander Musienko, who often visits my regular columns, express concerns about the election race and the risks associated with it. He believes that Democrats may be cautious in making decisions for fear of escalation. In his opinion, this may mean that it is not Biden himself who will initiate such steps, but the Democratic wing will exert pressure, possibly warning against additional escalation. Is there really such a chance that they will be cautious again, but not from the point of view of fear of Russia, but from the point of view of fear of electoral points?
Well, I don't think that. Frankly, the average American follows the situation in Ukraine and makes political decisions based on that. If Ukraine makes any progress in this war, or if Russia makes some progress, unfortunately, the average American won't even notice it and won't pay attention to it. But if we can give you the support you need and you make serious progress, whether in the form of attacks on Russian territory or as a result of the F-16s that we provide you, that, in my opinion, can improve Biden's political position. Because the electorate already understands that we are providing you with significant assistance.
F-16, и вы сумеете их использовать на поле битвы, я думаю, что наоборот, что это может улучшить политический аргумент для Байдена, потому что электорат, он не думает, электорат уже понимает, что мы вам даем очень много денег.
It was in the news that we gave you $61 billion, and this assistance continues. The argument that we are spending too much taxpayer money to help Ukraine has already developed and will not disappear. Trump and his supporters will continue to use it, and it will be part of their rhetoric. Now the question is, what will be the result of these investments? If the Americans see real progress, if Ukraine shows some achievements in this war, this can change the situation. Seeing the results that will be achieved with these funds, Americans may perceive the aid as an effective investment, which, in turn, can strengthen the position of the Democrats. And if they see that despite all this money that we are sending you, all this risk that we are taking on in the entire free world, despite all this, Russia continues to move forward. And if there is no progress on the battlefield, then it is precisely this argument of Trump that becomes more influential.
Trump will be able to end Russia's war against Ukraine by demonstrating strength, says Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, known to us from different angles, Mike Johnson. We support peace through strength. In the 3.5 years of the Biden administration, this was not the case. Everything was exactly the opposite. And again, Johnson mentions phone calls, thanks to which Trump will be able to end all wars, in his opinion. According to Johnson, it is during such conversations that Trump will put forward threats and demands to to opponents around the world, which they pay attention to, because they are afraid of him to some extent. Look, here is peace through power. Maybe such a scenario and the unleashing of all wars will be more affordable and optimal, as Johnson and Trump promise?
Look, there are no guarantees in this life. Here we see how unpredictable everything is. A week and a half ago, someone tried to kill Trump. Yesterday Biden left the election campaign. It is difficult to foresee what will happen. But we can look at what a person said, what a person did, and draw some conclusions from it. I think it's unlikely that what Johnson says is that it will be. First, we must not forget that it was the Republicans who stopped aid to Ukraine, that you waited for aid for almost 6 months because the Republicans did not allow Congress to vote for this aid. In the end, thank goodness, Mike Johnson was persuaded to support this aid, and he took serious political risks to do so. And we have to remember that 113, I think either 112 or 113 Republicans voted against this aid to Ukraine. So, what Mike Johnson says is, of course, fine if it were true, but we must remember that the Republican Party itself, the party itself, does not agree with him. This is point number one. Point number two. We need to look at Trump himself and his new vice nominee, J.D. Vance. I'll even say that J.D. Vance and I, well, it was about 10 years ago, we studied together at Yale University. He was in law school, I was in college. We didn't know each other. I heard there who he was, but we didn't know each other professionally. But I follow his career and see what he performs and what he says. And just 2 years ago, he appeared on video and says that he just doesn't care about Ukraine. Finally, they don't give a damn about Ukraine. He said this publicly on video. Your viewers, you can find it on YouTube, as he said it. And Trump wouldn't have chosen a vice presidential candidate who said that if it hadn't had some impact on his worldview. And that's what scares me, is that this logic can affect him. I'm also scared that people like Tucker Carlson, David Sachs, Elon Musk have a lot of influence on Trump. I heard a report that it was the three of them, together with one of Trump's sons, who influenced the former president to choose the same J.D. Vance as his vice president. So, this is some kind of sign in which direction it can go. But on the other hand, of course, the Democrats, and this Biden administration, is doing absolutely not enough to defend the free world. And, frankly, this is shameful, since they did not untie your hands, because they did not come out and did not express any clear strategy for the victory of Ukraine. To be honest, this is even, I will say, cowardly. The fact that all they are ready to say about this war is that Russia cannot win, and Ukraine cannot lose, but they are not yet ready to say the most important proposal, that Ukraine must win. I haven't heard this proposal from this administration in the last 3 years, which means that in other times I would speak very publicly and say that what Biden is not doing enough, that what Jake Sullivan is advising him is dangerous, and that this is a huge risk to the free world. Unfortunately, I still do it, but we have another risk on the other side. And this other risk is precisely this isolationism. On the one hand, the Democrats are very afraid of escalation, and this stops them from doing what a lot of people among the Democratic Party still believe what they should do, and among the Republican Party, this is a completely different logic. They have already begun to believe that America should isolate itself and retreat from the whole world. And between these two, let's say, philosophies, this philosophy of isolationism is still more dangerous.
The stakes are high and getting higher. We will talk about them, with your permission. We have already mentioned the ratio of the possibilities of Trump's victory now. You give 60%. The Hill and IHQ's decision desk give the following figures. In the Trump-Harris pair, the Republican is ahead of the Democrat by about 2 percentage points, 47% against 45%. These figures are almost identical to those in the Trump-Biden pair, where the difference was 46% versus 43.5%. At the same time, they remind that now Trump's advantage on Harris is 2 points, and at the beginning of the year it was 8 points. That's it. It seems to be shrinking. To what extent do these figures give Democratic supporters cause for hope?
They absolutely should give cause for hope. Moreover, they should give reason for hope, because for Kamala Harris today these numbers are gender. This is not the ceiling, but the floor. For Trump, these numbers represent a ceiling, because if his approval ratings remain that way even after the attempt on his life, it means that these numbers cannot rise significantly. They have nowhere to go up. Too many Americans have a negative opinion of Trump. And for Kamala, I think that even though she's sitting vice president, the majority of the American population doesn't know her very well. This White House has been hiding her for the past few years. I think they may now regret that Kamala Harris has not been a very public figure for a long time. Therefore, in the next 2, 3, 4 months, before the elections, the American public will actively study who Kamala Harris is. And here she will have the opportunity, I think, for these numbers to move further up. When I say that I consider the probability of Trump winning at 60%, it does not mean that he will win by 20%. He can win by a narrow margin, such as 1%, 1.5%, or 2%. I just think that a win is still more likely on his part, but this is only for now. These numbers could change dramatically if Kamala Harris starts to perform well in the coming weeks and her public image begins to attract the attention and sympathy of voters. If she begins to perform successfully and her recognition increases, the numbers in the polls may change significantly. As you mentioned, we have seen the numbers change in recent months, and this confirms that the situation can change again. And then there was the problem with Biden. Why did Biden leave? Because for him, his numbers were also the ceiling. He could not go higher, because everyone already knew him. Biden is already in the picture, and after his unsuccessful public appearance, including the fallout from the debate, he has failed to convince voters of his ability to continue to be president for another 4 years. This means that even if there are significant changes over the next 4 months, Biden's chances of improving the situation are already minimal. On the contrary, Kamala Harris has the opportunity to change her position, as her rating has not yet stabilized and may increase depending on how she runs her campaign and how the public perceives her.
Uriel, what topics should Kamala Harris focus on in order to rise from low positions to the top faster and more confidently?
First, she should be based on her background as a prosecutor. She was a prosecutor in California for many years and is known for her aggressive approach. During the 2020 election, when she ran within the Democratic Party, the left criticized her for being too tough on criminals and noted some controversial points in her work. On the whole, I believe that these problems did take place, but this is a separate topic for discussion.
В общем-то, я думаю, что некоторые из этих вещей таки были как немного проблематичны, может быть, это другой разговор.
But today, Trump, in general, according to American law, we can say it right or wrong, but according to American law, Trump is a crime. He was sentenced to 34 counts in New York.
Не знаю, как это на русском сказать, в Нью-Йорке.
As for 34 points of the article, which together exceed almost a life sentence.
Well, I wouldn't make it. There won't be any life sentence. And, to be honest, I think that even they will not say anything about prison at all, it will be more likely to be a serious fine, maybe it will be beaten, but it will not reach a prison term. But despite this, one of them is still a criminal, a convicted criminal, and the other is not. So, she should base her argument on her background that she was a prosecutor, and this can convince some center-right people who, let's say, are skeptical about Trump, but they also may not like progressives too much. So, this is one point. Then, the second point, it must show leadership on the world stage. Among Americans, there may be an opinion that Kamala Harris is not strong enough compared to Donald Trump. And, therefore, she must convince these people. And in these next few weeks, she should, I believe, speak out on key world issues. To oppose China in defense of Taiwan, against Russia in defense of Ukraine. She should emphasize her experience and demonstrate a deep understanding of key issues to emphasize her superiority over Trump. In Trump's interviews, there were sometimes problems with understanding foreign policy issues. This gives her the opportunity to show contrast and highlight her strengths. And the last, third point, she must choose the right vice president. Here I believe that she has an obvious choice.
What?
I believe she should elect Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
Why?
Pennsylvania is one of the most important states in this election. As you know, as our election campaigns work, we don't just look at the votes of the people. Each state has a number of delegates. If you win this state even by just 1 point, then you don't win 51% of those delegates, you win all the delegates. We are looking at this election not only from the perspective of the general opinion of the country, but also by analyzing the opinion in each key state. There will be 6 key states in this election, and Pennsylvania is one of the most important. Having a popular governor in Pennsylvania could increase Democrats' chances of winning the state. This is number 1. Number 2, he, as I said, is quite popular, and he is a centrist. He's not too left-wing, he's so center-left, and that's going to be, I think most Americans will love it. And the third point, and again, I say this unfortunately, but this is the world, he is a man. Still, it would be very beneficial if she chose the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, who is also a conservative and successful governor. But I think it would be difficult to vote in the country when both candidates are women. So I think she still needs a man as vice president.
And Shapiro himself will not mind, as I understand it, to head this position?
You know, there are a lot of people who give up power.
That's why I'm asking.
Unlikely. I think he will gladly accept it.
Okay, what interesting prospects and elections we have. Right now we showed, the Wall Street Journal writes that Kamala Harris is chosen, conducts conversations with candidates. There are 7 potential ones. There is 1 woman on the list, as you mentioned. I talked to 3. Shapiro is already among them. We will discuss this with you, I hope, at the end of this week. Then the choice may be made. The Kremlin's reaction, they say that they are not surprised, but will keep a close look. In fact, this is nothing new. Propagandists make a fuss and laugh when it comes to the nuclear button in the hands of Kamala Harris. Apparently, they are especially worried about this. Do you think they were really surprised, or is it just part of their usual rhetoric? And how embarrassed are they now, too? After all, even if they say they are not surprised, unforeseen events still happened?
Well, the first and most important point is that every authoritarian leader is surprised when another leader of a democratic country voluntarily leaves office. It is always a shock for them, because it demonstrates to the people that this is possible. In countries like China and Russia, the idea that a leader, regardless of his age or other factors, can voluntarily step down and relinquish power is the most embarrassing outcome.
Лидер, несмотря на его возраст или whatever, то что он может добровольно уйти и сказать, что он отказывается от власти, это просто для них это самый неловкий результат.
I hope that among the Russian people, among the Chinese people, there may be such a question, but what if an American leader can come out and say that he will not run, that he is giving up the opportunity, that he can return to power, why not here? Why do our leaders never give up power? I will recall again an important event in American history, our first president, George Washington, abdicated after 2 terms. In response, the King of England, George III, declared that if Washington did step down from power, he would become the greatest man in the world. And so I hope that in an authoritarian world, people look at this and draw their own conclusions. Unfortunately, of course, since all media in Russia is controlled by the Kremlin, it is unlikely. From a geopolitical point of view, I'm not sure how surprised the Kremlin was by this event. Perhaps it was unexpected, perhaps not, but it is certainly a problem for them. If Biden had remained in power, the Kremlin would have had strong arguments that Biden is old, that he is not ready for challenges, that someone else is actually running the country. These arguments could seriously increase Trump's chances of winning. And here the situation has completely changed, and I think that this is for the best for the Russians, because it again shows the contrast between us and between the Russians. Here is one more thing I would like to add. I was on the air before, and I also discussed this topic. Commentators who promote Russian propaganda say things that are hard to believe. For example, one of them, Eric Erickson, argued that Biden's departure is an American analog of how people are pushed out of windows in Russia. Comparisons of this kind are simply shocking. They always try to make these stupid comparisons between America and Russia to show that we are no better than them. And Putin, of course, uses this. The Kremlin, of course, I think will make the same argument. To show that Biden was pushed out, Biden left. This proves that America is not a real democracy. America is no better than us. Everything is the same. Why don't you support Putin? Always tell the Americans that they should be very careful. Compare it with dictatorships, because dictators also listen to what we say, and they will use these arguments to promote their own authoritarianism.
Absolutely. They just mirror what is happening in their country. They try to extrapolate to what does not happen in democratic regimes, thinking that someone will believe in it, just as they believe in dictatorship and autocracy. But we warn you, and thank you for doing it with us. Kamala Harris says, like you and me, in fact, that if you do not stop Putin and do not stop Russia, then wars will scale, that it will move further. If the world does not respond, the aggressor will bargain with other neighbors. They will undoubtedly become emboldened, and instead of order and stability, this will create wars of aggression and chaos. Literally, these words were heard at the Global Peace Summit in Switzerland in June of this year, where, in fact, I was also present, and this position on Ukraine, it has remained unchanged over the past 4 years, we recalled. Our fellow journalists recalled. She understands that Putin is not calling for negotiations, but for capitulation, and in general, everything is put into the paradigm of the fullest assistance to Ukraine, unchanged. We understand that this is likely to continue. Do you also understand this in Russia, and are they already afraid of Kamala Harris, as you think?
Well, again, I don't know what they think about Harris in Russia. Sometimes I watch Russian channels just to understand what they are talking about. It's too early to judge what they really think, but I think they perceive Kamala Harris as a risky potential new leader. She is still much younger than Biden. She may be more aggressive than Biden. Biden, I think, was still afraid of years in his old age. I think that it was a mistake. He was afraid, but I think that it was still that he was afraid of escalation. I think Kamala may not be so afraid. Perhaps she will take this opportunity to defend the free world more vigorously and show that America remains the leader of this free world.
Uriel, thank you so much for your tests and for always making time for us. We appreciate your predictions, which, as we can see, are always based on facts and often come true. Thank you, I think. See you this week. If you succeed, all the best.
Agreed, thank you.
Thank you too, Uriel Epstein, the Executive Director of the American nonprofit organization Renew Democracy Initiative, and me, Ira Uzlova. Friends, thank you for being with us and watching our programs. Leave your comments, your opinion is important and always matters. Draw the right conclusions and subscribe to YouTube 24. This helps our programs grow and reach new viewers. Take care of yourself. Believe in the armed forces of Ukraine. See you and win.